Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest in a series of webinars by digitalfirst.com for the Accounting Business Expo on March 20th and 21st at the International Convention Centre in Sydney. My name is Sholto Macpherson. I'm the editor of digitalfirst.com and head of content for Accounting Business Expo. Thank you for spending your lunch with us today. Today we're going to talk about one of the presenters from the Accounting Business Expo on a really cool topic. There's a long list of apps and tools that have promised to replace or kill Excel. I have to admit, I've contributed to the anti-Excel hype. And that's because I've been a huge fan of Google Sheets for many years. It was powerful enough for me. It was in the browser and it had awesome multi-user collaboration. Much better than Excel, though I've got to admit, Microsoft has been improving in that area. But here's the thing, Excel is proving that it's not just a tool, it's a platform, and one with a lot of life in it, left in it yet. In fact, our guest today has found a way to use Excel to automate processes in cloud accounting software such as Xero and Intuit QuickBooks Online. It sounds crazy, but maybe it's just so crazy that it could work. Our guest today is Lance Rubin, CEO of Model Citizen, a consultancy and CFO services, and the CFO of SQL CFO, a national CFO franchise. A lot of CFOs in there. How are you, Lance? Welcome to the show. I'll just get you off mute and there we go.
Thanks, Sholto. And yeah, there is a lot of CFOs in that tongue twister. But yeah, Model Citizen does financial modeling consulting and supports the other SQL CFOs around financial modeling. But yeah, it's great to be on.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's just start at the beginning. Why on earth would you want to drive processes in Xero and QBO from Excel? I mean, the concept to me sounds totally bizarre.
It's great. And you know what? I agree. And I think Lilette Khalija actually posted something on LinkedIn exactly on this point. And the key thing is to actually understand, what are you using Excel for? And so, you know, for me, Excel is not accounting software. It's not to keep receipts. It's not a CRM, despite the fact that it could do all of that. And just because it can do all that doesn't necessarily mean that it must do all that. And I think that's the problem, that everyone says, well, I could build an accounting software, and I've been guilty of that as well, but not to say that you should. So you've really got to look at, what does Excel offer that is different to everything else? For me, it's customization. That's the key.
Okay, so let's just stop for a second. Did you just wake up one day and say, you know what, it's taking me way too long to do stuff in Xero, and I think Excel might be the answer. I'm going to try and work out how to do it. I mean, how did you get to this point?
Great question. So I actually started in corporate, and of course there's lots of Excel in corporate as well. And basically what I was seeing is the process by which you report to customers information out of an accounting software with, you know, we were using Hyperion, is no different to how you would do out of Xero. So basically the process is take data out, throw it into Excel and push it out. And, you know, I just thought, you know, that's crazy. You know, there's so much time that we could spend having conversations, influencing, and adding more value than actually producing reports. Mm-hmm. So I started looking at this problem, and I started looking at the other solutions that are out there. And I said, yeah, but am I going to use an app and sort of forego the fact that I need to customize things to the customer's needs? Now, as a CFO, I needed to customize it for Banjo's needs, but as SQL, we need to customize it for all different customers. So customization is actually critical. So I woke up and said, love it or hate it, I do love it. Of course, Excel is going to be needed because of the customization, but it's got its challenges. It's breakable and unusable.
You just mentioned Banjo. I don't think you've explained what Banjo is to the listeners.
So I'm no longer the CFO of Banjo, but I was before this point. We actually got one of the SQL CFOs to step in and take over the role. But basically, when I left corporate, I started my own business and I became a CFO for Banjo. So in that role,
that's right.
Sorry, yes, it's a fintech lender. So Banjo is one of the SME lenders in the online lending space, and ultimately, you know, it was me as the CFO. They actually started their business without a CFO or without an accountant. So I think this is really interesting for me. So I came in, they had no management report. Well, they had they had the Xero management reporting, right? They had reporting which was currently in Xero. They
Mhm.
didn't have any modeling. They didn't have any cash flow analysis, budgets, and all this other stuff that sort of they needed. And they realized that they needed that for capital raising, for valuations, and a whole range of things that startups normally do. So I came in and I sort of looked at this problem. They were running on Xero. So it gave me really in-depth insight into how do I build this. Now, because I came from an Excel background, I started looking at certain tools and technologies that sort of enabled automation in that space.
And I was going to say that everyone would have said, well, you know, if you're doing cash flow forecasting or budgeting, maybe you should check out Float or one of the reporting tools like Futurely or Spotlight or whatever that all say they do that. Some of those things that you mentioned maybe not all of them, but they definitely do some of them.
Yeah, and that's true. They do, and I think this is where it gets tricky, right? So I think they'll do 80 to 90% of what Excel does, and so you say, well, hang on, that's good enough, right? But you know, you either hit break even or you don't, or you either cash flow positive or you're not, right? Some of these things are so important and become so accurate and critical that 90% or 80% isn't good enough. So some of these tools, like Futurely, can't customize the logic. Guess what? You have to upload an Excel file into Futurely. So I think there's certain things that these apps can do, and they're certainly good from a basic level. But when it comes to more complex stuff, or you need to customize, then it becomes a real challenge.
So what specifically, when you say you couldn't add the logic, what logic were you trying to add that was so important? What was that 10%?
So if you think about Banjo's an SME lender. So, you know, its liabilities and funding, it also has an asset which earns interest. So the way customers come in, the way leads come through, the conversion rate, average loan size, you know, credit losses and provisioning, you know, some of this logic you need to be able to change. It's not X% on last year, because, you know, what drives an increase in cost? Well, it's FTE. What drives an increase in revenue? Well, it's number of leads. So you have to have non-financial metrics, which are not even in Xero. You know, so where are you going to put that in? So there's not an ability to feed in non-financial data into financial information to sort of bring it together to make a really relevant and informed decision. That's the problem. You can't make the sort of decisions at the minutiae detail to make sure that, am I going to hit cash flow break even? And do I need to raise more money or not? And this was a constant challenge in any startup, particularly Banjo.
Okay, so it's a pretty classic problem you're trying to solve as a CFO.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, if the CFO in the SME space or any accountant is not focused on cash flow, what are they focusing on? Right? It's the number one issue and it's the number one challenge. And you might miss, you know, days in debtors and days in creditors. If you get that wrong, that could have a huge impact. So some of these things are not, you know, 80% correct. They need to be, given that forecasts by their nature are uncertain. You can't have something that's uncertain knowing that there's certain things that are also wrong with it, like it doesn't have the right logic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you say that you're using Excel to drive processes, you've also been talking to me earlier about using Excel to do things outside of forecasting and so on, such as onboarding users, which to me, I just can't get my head around. Like, how did you realize that it was better to onboard with Excel than actually to do it in Xero or QBO?
So again, you know, I came across, looked at some of the apps out there, and I actually was looking at process automation through journals, which are ad hoc. So everyone had, you know, you have a journal, you have to do some calculations. Guess where you're going to do those calculations for that journal? Probably in Excel. And then you've got to go into Xero and you've got to manually type in that journal in the screen, hand key it in. So anything where you hand keying stuff in is, one, prone to error, two, takes a lot of time. So I was trying to solve one particular problem around automating uploading process for journals. And I thought, well, hang on, there's no app out there that will do that, because your journal is so bespoke. It might be accrual for loans. It might be expense accruals. You know, it needs a calculation to work out what the accrual needs to be, and then you book the accrual. That booking process, I thought there's got to be a better way. So we stumbled across an add-in which sort of does that. And as part of that discovery, they also do changes in chart of accounts, enabling new onboarding of clients, deriving an opening balance sheet. So if you take on a new client, you have an opening balance sheet, right? So that you have to set up the chart of accounts manually. You then have to post each of the opening journals, and you can do it in one journal, but it's all there. But guess where most of that information is sitting? It's still back in Excel. It's probably from a MyOb CSV extract or something, or some other accounting system. It's going to be in Excel. And this is why I stay back to Excel, because every accounting system, I'm accounting system agnostic, because I have to be, because my clients will use different packages. And ultimately, what we do is every accounting system goes back into Excel. So they all have that sort of commonality around an Excel export. But I love QBO and Xero, because ultimately these two are the leaders in innovation and technology for cloud accounting.
So what are all the processes that you're using, excuse me, to drive processes in Xero or QBO using Excel? We've mentioned onboarding, mentioned cash flow forecasting. Is that it? Or journaling you mentioned as well?
Yeah, changes in chart of accounts. So quite often companies will start a business and then they'll need to create new chart of accounts. Mm-hmm. Even just simply changing the name of a chart of accounts. So you've got to log into Xero and you've got to go in and make the changes. Now, let's say you have to make, and I've had to do it for Model Citizen as well. We've had to change our chart of accounts. Mm-hmm. And even if I want to sort of populate tracking codes and tracking information and tracking data, right? So it's not just about journals. There might be other information that I want to upload and change. I can do that through a two-way automation. So it's sort of pulling information down from Xero and QuickBooks, and also pushing it back up. And it's the pushing back up, which, as you said, it's the onboarding of the client. So you set up the client on Xero, but then what do you need to do next? Well, you've got to set up their chart of accounts. You've got to take on an opening balance sheet. And when I first started my business, I had someone else do that for me, a good mate of mine. And it didn't take him that long, but I gave him information on a spreadsheet to do that. So if I'm giving him information on the spreadsheet, why can't I just automate that process rather than him doing it manually?
So, and the reason why it's faster is because with Xero, you have to jump in and out of screens. So you have to go from one account code screen to the next, whereas in Excel, you just got a whole range, go ding, 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 and then...
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. It's literally a click refresh or click upload or click pull down. The other thing is you can actually connect live. So one of the things is you can actually have a live feed out of Xero into Excel. So you can have a live dashboard, and then you can sit there. Someone can be sitting in the Philippines or somewhere else posting information, and you can see that information live. So you can refresh on an ad hoc basis in a detailed way, or you can make that spreadsheet live.
It just sounds, conceptually, I can't get my head around the fact that you're driving automation in cloud accounting software, which is the latest iteration of accounting technology for SMEs, but you're doing it from Excel. It just strikes me as totally bizarre. Like I just can't. Someone's got to come up with a cooler app.
Well,
surely not. Surely we can't be coming full circle as I actually just go back to Excel.
Well, just remember, Excel's also got an online version. So I think Excel themselves are innovating, and they're not standing still. And that's probably one of the biggest misunderstandings is not only is the way that people are using Excel archaic, but the tools have evolved so much. And so, yes, I agree with you. If you're someone that's used Excel in the same way as you've always used it, there's no way, right? If you were doing everything manually without automation or without any of these tools, crazy, right? Exactly your point. Why would you do that? It's just you're creating more work. Yes. So it's not about doing work in Excel in the old way. It's actually about using automation that is synced to the cloud. So think about Excel as sort of an appendage, as opposed to sort of a foreign object that needs to be removed.
It just reminded me of a conversation I had with an accounting grad, right? Like, it's still at university. His dad's business, I think he was wholesaling or something. And he was so proud. He was telling me how he built the full accounting function in Excel. It's like, I don't need to pay for Xero. I was like, yeah, but dude, what happens when you leave? Like, who's going to know how this runs? And it was just amazing.
What about the bank feed? What about the bank feed and the cash coding and the journals and the chart of accounts?
This guy's like 23 years old and is telling me how awesome his accounting app he built in Excel was. So
what about Receipt Bank, right? Receipt Bank and single touch payroll and compliance, right? You know, don't do that in Excel. That's crazy.
He's like, but I'm saving my dad $50 a month. I was like, how much is your time worth, dude? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and what risk do you have, right? As you said, to your point, what happens when you go? What's the operational risk? And no doubt there'd be a whole bunch of macros in there, right? So, one of the things that we do is we try to stay away from macros, because whilst macros are great, and we certainly do them for certain clients, we try to stay away because it's not sustainable or supportable. So you've got to use technology that enhances Excel within Excel without sort of writing code. So Power Query, Power Pivot, Power BI is sort of an extension to that. But of course, that's sort of not Excel, it's a BI solution, but within the Microsoft family. So, there's just, people actually don't know what they're sitting on. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, I had a lot more questions, but we just didn't get to them. And this is just meant to be a teaser. We can't give the whole game away, Lance. So I'm just going to say that that your session details, you can hear Lance's session at the Accounting Business Expo. The session is called Using Excel to Automate Processes in Xero and QBO? Question mark. Yes, you can. It's my nod to Obama there. It's on Wednesday, 20th of March at 4:25 to 4:55 p.m. It's going to be a fantastic session. Lance is a terrific presenter. And if you haven't seen him present before, he really brings some cool presentation apps. And
we'll do that again, Sholto. Not to steal too much away.
Yeah, I'm not going to give anything away there. So, and a reminder that Lance's session is one of 130 sessions, seminars, roundtables, and tech talks happening across 2 days. It's completely free to attend if you're an accountant or bookkeeper, accountant in practice or in commerce, who registers before March 20th. Otherwise, you'll have to pay $60 on the door. So, yeah, full of amazing content.
And I'm going to be giving away free stuff as well, Sholto. So some of the tools and stuff, people can play with and have a look. So you're not losing out.
Yeah.
If you don't come, you're losing out, I think.
Exactly. So if you can get a free ticket at accountingbusiness.com.au/register today. Lance, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Sholto. Always a pleasure.
Look forward to seeing you at the show.
Fantastic. You too. Thanks, mate.
Goodbye.